Welcome back to the podcast. We are here with return guest Mitch Levy, and he is a global credibility expert. He is a 2-time TEDx speaker. He is an international best-selling author of over 60 books, and he is going to be talking about all the amazing things he has going on. He is an idea guy, an aha guy. He is all about being seen and being heard as a thought leader. But as you can imagine, that can be so many different approaches, so many different things to do to crack that nut. So Mitch is here to help us, to give us some clarity, some thoughts, some ideas, some action. Mitch, glad to be talking to you again.
Hey, Robert, you asked me how to pronounce my last name, and you got that one right. I actually like Mitchell.
Okay.
Just thought I'd mention. And you know, the reason, how's it going? It's going amazingly well. And I'm going to say, if you're listening to this, you go, oh man, that was an awkward moment. It's not an awkward moment. It's if something makes you smile, and when people use my full name, it makes me smile. I just thought I'd let you know. The only people who actually do it all the time, and I just can't correct anymore, is my family, because they're stuck. Whatever name they have in their mind, they can't change it.
And I can relate to that exactly. I'm Robert. I hate when people call me by Rob, and the same thing. My family still call me Bob from being a little kid, and people say like, oh well, the shorter name, that's like my nickname for you. It's more personal. And I'm like, it's still, I don't like it. I'll set the boundary. I'll speak up. And you know what? And even you mentioning that, I mean, it kind of comes to mind of, I had an aha, to use your branding, maybe like 6 months ago, of everything doesn't have to be perfect, especially conversations. Like you meet with someone, you have a podcast interview. Sometimes there's awkward stuff, but like, who cares? It doesn't matter. And even like the things that you hate about a conversation, maybe the other person liked, or vice versa, or maybe it doesn't even matter. And so many things that we do in our businesses, in our marketing, in our books, we try to be perfect. We wish we could start over, but for all you know, that personal, that raw, that fun moment was what attracted people to you in the first place, including maybe this episode, this conversation.
I'm going to say, so if you're listening, don't even try to be perfect. It's not possible. So I'd say just try to be you. I mean, this is the crazy, crazy, crazy part. So I interviewed Robert. It's been long enough, given that your son is 21 months old. It's long enough that I don't know if you've found this last chapter of my life. So I know we were talking in the middle. So between 2019 and 2020, I interviewed 500 thought leaders on what is credibility, and came out with a book called Credibility Nation, launched a membership community called Credibility Nation. We've got close to 400 members, 375 to be exact. And I did a TEDx it was the 28th most successful TEDx, or most popular TEDx in 2021. And the TEDx is really simple. So first we'll do broad brush world. The TEDx says we are losing our humanity, and I'm tired of watching it happen. And the formula, very simple, is if we did nothing more than act credible, we will be more humane to each other. And so for those that, if you watch the TEDx, you'll see there are 10 skills associated with being credible. Being vulnerable is one. I didn't know how you'd react to the first name. Being coachable, right? Hey, I heard you. Not only did I hear you, but I don't want you calling me Rob or Bob. I want you calling me Robert, right? You got it, right? So now it's stuck for next time, right? I think the two big elements of being credible are, and now I'm diving into the detail, but let me jump up to the top level first. I'll dive into the detail in a second. Top level. Credibility is the quality in which you're trusted, known, and liked. Because if somebody accidentally bumps into you, or if you've done a great job in SEO, or they see an ad, right? You have 3 seconds to capture their attention. And in that attention grabbing thing, you have to build enough trust that they want to then spend a little bit more time to get to know you. As they get to know you, you're going to build upon that trust, and they'll decide if they like you. And so credibility is the quality in which you're trusted, known, and liked. And in that framework, there are 2 elements that are terribly important. One is being a servant leader. So being of service to others. And the second is being coachable. Now, there are 10 things. I can't tell you what's more important than the others. I haven't done that research yet. I can tell you people think trustworthiness is more important than being known and being liked, and they don't disagree, but it's still as important. And I'd say there's one thing that's most important in terms of capturing people's attention. And that is, we need to wear on our sleeve, we need to wear our purpose. Now, given, by the way, although this is a podcast, I'm looking at Robert, he has no sleeves on. So the good news is you get to wear on your arms, like, who are you? Like, the interesting part to me in the interviews, now over 600, I'm continuing to do it. I've turned the interviews into a product that we actually sell. And part of what it is coaching and consulting to help the person first, A, articulate their purpose in 10 words or less, and B, be able to have a 5-minute interview where people get to trust, know, and like you in 5 minutes. And what I would recommend to anyone listening is to be able to articulate your purpose in 10 words or less and do it in such a way where people are interested in knowing more about you.
Seems like a tall order, right? So like, it has to fit your purpose in there. People have to be interested, and it also needs to be somewhat recognizable, but also differentiate from everyone else. And you fit all that into 10 words. How is that even possible?
By the way, I love your ability to collate and articulate so quickly. So thank you. So there could be an assumption in your statement. So let me share the thought process. The way marketing is done today, the way we look at these cookie cutter marketing approaches, is we think when we capture somebody's attention, we have to say enough for them to see who we are and how brilliant we are and why they want to be attracted to us. And that's wrong. Just to be clear, the value proposition should not be the first words out of your mouth, period. What you really want to do, the first words out of your mouth need to allow, in an unbiased way, need to allow the person who's hearing it, or if they're reading it, the person who's reading it, or if they're feeling it kinesthetically, the person who's feeling it, it needs to allow them to know what playground you play in. So what I call a CPOP, it's customer point of pain. In some cases, it's customer point of pleasure. In other cases, it's customer point of purpose. So if you're a servant leader and you're serving others, what you want to be able to articulate is what playground you play in. And the person on the other side, here's the cool part, Robert, really cool part. If you're listening to a CPOP, if you're listening to somebody in 1 to 3 seconds articulate the playground they play in, you fall into 1 of 3 categories. You either A, oh, that's a playground I'm interested in. Number 2, that's interesting. I have friends, or I know people I could recommend who should play in that playground. Or 3, I'm not interested in that playground. Doesn't mean I'm not interested in you. Imagine, dude, in 1 to 3 seconds, having the person on the other side self-identify whether or not they're 1, 2, or 3. If they are 1 or 2, if they are either A, interested in the playground, or B, interested in sharing that playground with somebody else, the natural next question is, tell me more. They're now giving you permission to give your value proposition. They're now giving you permission to articulate how you make that playground happen, what you do to make that happen. And I'm going to say, do that in 1 to 2 minutes.
And,
right?
and this ties in with kind of what you're saying here of this, like, know, like, and trust thing, of like all these little micro commitments that someone will be like. And you mentioned even early on that this attention span is 3 seconds. So we might need to be kind of stringing things along in little bite-sized pieces. And sometimes you hear about this idea of like building a fence around your idea. or pointing out who this is not for, to kind of say, well, here's my ideal prospects. Here's people on the other extreme that don't care about me at all. Here are the people in the middle who are maybe my referral sources or who can recommend me to others. And to make sure that I'm getting my brain wrapped around this, you're mentioning this term playground. So can you explain what a playground is? Because I have an idea, but it could be wrong. I feel like maybe like in your case that you might say like your playground are like aspiring TEDx speakers or authors, but what would you say a playground is, just so that we're speaking the same language?
Do you mind if I answer the question in a different way, which will answer the question, but instead of saying, what is your playground? Do you mind if I just share with you I've got 2 different CPOPs I want to share.
Don't mind at all. Feel free.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well,
and you micro commitmented me. So this aligns exactly.
Oh, because what happens is I'm not answering your question, but I'm not answering your question directly, but I will answer your question. And as an interviewer-interviewee exchange, it's like, oh, okay, I thank you for resetting how you asked me that question. Let me give you an answer. And then we'll come back to it and say, hey, did I answer your question? Right? So I'm going to say I've got more. Typically, we should have one CPOP that we wear at any one point in time. Remember, customer point of pain. I'm going to share a CPOP that you and I both share together. Right? And it's going to be 3 words. Are you ready? This is so powerful. Professionals. Oh, actually, it's 4 words. Sorry. Professionals wanting book credibility. You and I both do that. You and I both play in the playground of professionals who want book credibility. It just turns out that your tell me more is different than my tell me more. Right?
Interesting.
Your tell me more. If you and I both, so I actually don't mind that you and I share the same CPOP in that way. I'll give you another CPOP that there's some overlap as well. I don't mind that you and I share that CPOP. If it's interesting enough for the person who's listening, they're going to say, tell me more. Right? And your tell me more is we work on anthology books and then you could go from there. For me, my tell me more is so much fun. My tell me more is 6 months from the time I start working with somebody. We've ghostwritten, published, distributed, made them an Amazon best-selling author in hardcover, paperback, Kindle, and a couple months later, they have their audiobook. Now, here's the really cool part. The book that they get is typically not the one they walk in the room with. The book that they get is the book that meets them where they want to go. Because they typically walk in the room running a history book. And what I help them articulate is their purpose, where they're going in life. And the book that we deliver is the one that helps them accomplish their purpose. Now, what I wanted you to understand is the playground. You and I could both use that same CPOP. How you would say the tell me more is different. My tell me more is how do I play in the playground? Right. And so the person who's listening, whether it's the person who might be interested personally, or if it's the person who wants to recommend me, may or may not like what I say. How do I play in my playground? If they don't like what I say, they're not going to recommend me. And that's really okay. Because if I wear the purpose on my sleeve, I get to attract the people who want to play in my playground. And it's not that I will repel others, but those that don't need to play in the playground, that's okay. I don't need to serve that audience in this model.
And is this the kind of thing that, I mean, how do you land on some of this? Because does this require like years of thinking or like so much trial and error? Because it seems like there's a lot especially even in your answers here, of this type of person really knowing their pain and even kind of tapping into sort of these advanced subjects of like, they think they have this idea that their book will be their book will be the history book. And then it ends up being the book that ends up where they're at. It seems like there's just a lot of, I don't know if baggage is the right term, but just a lot of like things that seem to have come about over many hundreds of iterations, many years. At least it seems like it. I mean, is that accurate? Just like Because it seems like there's always what you want or what you start out with, and then there's that messaging as like a speaker that you end up landing on that's like really refined. So how the heck do we get to that? How do we get to something that just says what you want to say? It's magical. It's to the point. How do we get there?
So I'm going to share a teeny plug for one of the things that I do. So first of all, it is a superpower that I figured out I had in the interviews. I have 470 plus video testimonials of people saying to me that they've been looking to be able to articulate their purpose for, and they fill in the blank, 2, 4, 10, 12 years, and I help them get it in 5 minutes. Now, to be clear, they, in many cases, spent time with me asynchronously before they spent time with me synchronously. So they spent time, when you signed up for an interview, you had a 60-minute video on how to prepare. They got to look at other episodes. They got to think about it. And then when we were in the room together talking, what I do, and by the way, what I do is teachable, right? So it's, yes, I have a superpower, but it's also something that's teachable, which then makes it scalable and passable. It's just opposite to the marketing cookie cutter approaches we're taught today. And what happens is when you truly listen to how people serve, where their passion is, and typically, Robert, the really cool part is somebody's superpower. If you can do your superpower and deliver that to the marketplace and get paid, it's what you get excited about, what you get passionate about, what you love doing. And typically that superpower is born out of something that they've had in the past that they've had to overcome. And so a lot of people who have a particular superpower today, it's because they overcame something in the past, and they want to make sure those in the world that may also have that problem, issue, concern, opportunity, that they don't have it themselves. And so it means if you want to do this yourself, I would say one of the easiest ways, quick, fast forward, either jump on one of my interviews. So we charge, it's on Thought Leader Life. You can figure that out. Or if you went to Credibility Nation, I put a 30-minute course in place to teach people how to articulate their CPOP. 30 minutes. I mean, we're not talking a significantly large amount of time. Now, finding it and articulating and shedding all the marketing BS that you've been pounded into for years, that's going to take a little bit of time.
That's interesting.
And I didn't mean you personally. I meant the person listening.
Well, and I think that, I mean, you deal with that all the time of it's like simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, right? You deal with someone that is just wading through all the sea of all the buzzwords, the terms, the cliches. I need to come up with 16 customer avatars. I need to figure out my KPIs. There's all this noise, and the good stuff is in there somewhere, but it seems like it's like a multi-step process, right? There's like, you have nothing, you don't know what you don't know, then you know too much, and then you refine down to what is specific and relevant and actionable for you specifically. So you say these URLs, there's credibilitynation.com. Is that where to claim the 30 minutes?
Yep.
And then what was the Thought Leader web address?
Oh, where I've been doing my interviews, you could get to there from Credibility Nation, thoughtleaderlife.com. And then what's interesting, if you head over to Credibility Nation, we do a 5-day challenge once a quarter. And the next one coming up is March 7th, but every quarter, it's typically the first week of the third month of the quarter. And what we do there is we encourage people to take the CPOP course so they could articulate their purpose. And then during the 5 days, we help people align their purpose on and offline. Right? So just think about this for a second. If you can clearly articulate your purpose, and when people then see you physically, they know exactly who you are, what you do. When people see you online, imagine if they knew exactly what you did and what you did. If somebody Googles your name and lands on, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, whatever they land on, you're reinforcing that same purpose. That consistency, that focus is going to draw people in like a magnet for those people who want to play in your playground.
Nice. And I think that that's what we all want, right? We all want to stop working so hard, stop trying so hard, just have all these things attract to us and come to us, not because it's easy, but because we've laid the groundwork, we've done the smart things ahead of time, and now we're known for these things. And so as we're in our final few minutes of our interview here, Mitchell, these 5-day challenges, I've probably signed up for maybe 19 or 20 of them. And there's probably 2 that I've made it to day 2 or 3. And this always becomes a thing where I think, I like the idea. I love the 5-day challenge. Sometimes I sign up and then I fall behind on the homework, and then I always feel more frustrated. So how is your 5-day challenge different? And what advice do you have someone like me who signs up with the best of intentions? I never quite finish. What the heck do I do?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. Architecturally, a lot of people who are creating the 5-day challenges have the content build upon itself. So it's hard for you to do day 3 if you didn't do day 1. What I'd say is the way we've done it is in a way that every day, yes, there is an additive power if you actually do things every day. That said, there's value of just doing day 4 or just doing day 2, right? And so what we focus on specifically is if you actually live your purpose out loud, if people see you, you then share it everywhere, and you share it in a proper fashion. And I will share one last thing for you. For those that want to come to the challenge, for those that want to be part of Credibility Nation, I have a different CPOP. It's a different playground that I'll share with you. And that CPOP is 3 words: businesses feeling invisible. Now, they feel invisible because, and I've now interviewed over 600 people, 98% cannot articulate their purpose in 10 words or less. So even those thought leaders that I interviewed that are very well known, because they cannot articulate their purpose, they too are invisible. And so if you want to be uninvisible, if you want to be seen, be you. Understand your purpose, make sure you share it everywhere, and you share it in such a way where those people who then get attracted to you, they know exactly what they're getting. This way you will not be invisible, and you'll be a magnet to those people who really do need your service.
It all makes sense. It all connects. We need to be seen. We need to be visible. We need to stop being visible. And as we're kind of wrapping up, winding down here, you keep mentioning this term superhero. And what comes to mind for me with superhero is they always have the origin story. They always have the tragic childhood, parents died in front of the theater type of thing. And then that ends up being the catalyst that leads them into their greatness. And it makes perfect sense in relation to what you mentioned about how, like, we all have this kind of weakness and we all had our own struggle. So that's the purpose of creating our book, so that others don't have to deal with their own struggle. And so what, in these last few minutes, seconds, what was your struggle? What is the big weakness, difficulty you had that led you to being the person you are now?
I would say, actually, in both my TEDx's, I go into a lot more detail. So we'll summarize by saying, my first male business role model was hedonistic and narcissistic, and taught me to be like him. And it took me 36 years to unlearn, even though he was only with me for 1 year, it took me 36 years to unlearn all those lessons he taught me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, by the way, it was shocking when I figured that out.
But at least you got there. And so for us to get the full story on that, where do we find these 2 TEDx talks of yours?
Oh, if you just Googled Mitchell Levy TED Talk or Mitchell Levy TEDx, okay. the one that's worth looking at, the one that really it was the 28th most successful TEDx in 2021. It's called "We Are Losing Our Humanity," and I'm tired of watching it happen.
Okay. So we need to check that out, and we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. We're losing our humanity, and I'm tired of watching it happen. The other place to go is credibilitynation.com to jump on that 5-day challenge. Any final plugs to make here, or any final parting words of advice before we wrap it up?
No, I've loved watching you and how you grow and who you've morphed into. And I'm just saying congratulations. It's I can't believe it's been, because we haven't talked since your son was born. So I can't believe it's been that long. And it's nice to see you and to feel your energy. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. It's nice to see you too. You were like one of the first early on handful of podcast guests. I still remember like one of the very first sentences you said to me was this concept of a joint client, which we're still talking about today. And then you hear about these things of, if you look back X number of years and you cringe, and then you look back X number of years and you cringe more, that's a good thing, right? That means that you're growing. If you had nothing in common to talk about with yourself back in high school or college, and if you don't even recognize that person, that's good. Cringing at the past is good. It means that you're evolving into another person. And I'm seeing the same from you. So it's glad to see you. And we will see everyone at credibilitynation.com. Go there now. You'd be glad you did, to become visible, to become seen, and you're well on your way. So we'll see you there, credibilitynation.com.